I mean, life is so concrete that, and they think they're such the center of the universe. Have you ever seen a child do this? Play hide and seek, and they cover their own eyes? And they think because they can't see, no one else can see them? Have you ever heard of a child, you know, when someone's talking about spiritual things, do you want to have Jesus in your heart? You've heard a little Sunday school teacher say that, and the child goes, I don't think he'll fit. Do you understand the point? There's no sense of abstract or spirit. Kids learn early on life is black and white, concrete, you can touch it. Now, as they grow, they develop more and more so that by 16, 17, they're expanding in their adult abstract thinking. They can get concepts and things that are not concrete, but are conceptual and visual and potentiality. Unconsciously, we don't take that into account when we teach our kids. The number one problem in teaching kids obedience is that when they're real small, we talk too much. And then when they get older, in the teen years, we talk too little. Now, you notice there on the little chart, you have ages 0 through about 4, 5, 6, 7. The real goal there in parenting is just to teach the what. And that's what I put the rules. What's right, what's wrong. God is good, God is love. Don't hit your sister. Don't put your hand on the stove. Don't run out into the street. When you do this, bad things happen. When you do this, good things happen. You know, you're just forming a foundation. This is the what. As they get a little bit older, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and it's real loose because kids develop at different rates, then you focus on the what. You don't lose that. But now it's with a context on the who. You want them to understand this is right and this is wrong, but it's out of your love for mommy or love for daddy. It's about this person who is God, and it's about relationship. Little kids can't really grasp much of that. And then as you move along, then they get to be 11, 12, 13, 14. As parents, what do we tend to do? It's peer pressure, and they want to do this, and the way you want to do that. And we say, no, you can't. And have you ever heard your child say this? How come? And heard come out of your lips, because I said so. That is not a good answer. Because I said so is a great answer for a 5-year-old. It's a very bad answer for a 15-year-old. Now, I'm not saying that your authority isn't as valid in both places, but a 15-year-old knows what the rules are. By now should happen in an environment of love where they're loved by you. You got to give them reasons. God has their brain moving. All the other kids get to do it, right? I mean, all the Christian kids even get to do it. Why can't I do it? And this is where you say to him, son, look, I know all the other kids are going to go to that movie, and there's unbelievable violence and unbelievable sex. Let's look at what God says in this passage. Okay? Those who set their minds on the things that are above will experience life and peace. Those who set their minds on the things of the earth will experience death and destruction. Now, what's the content of what's going to go into your mind? And you tell them the why, you give them the biblical criteria, and then you teach them that you're saying no because you love them, because obedience is what? God's channel of blessing. But you do it differently with a 15-year-old than you do with a 5-year-old. And then when they get to be 16, 17, 18, especially the 17 and 18 part, then you need to focus off of the what and off of just the who and off of the why. Now you're back to the what about what decision do you think you should make? Are you going to go to this movie or not? And what are the implications and what are the consequences? And what's it say about your convictions? See, you want to get to the point where before they leave your house, under your roof, they get to make some not so good decisions and experience some not so good consequences where you're there for them and coaching them. And so what you see here is you have two principles that flow out of this. In fact, before I go there, let me give you a little axiom and get out of Kohlberg's line. I put my own thinking right below rules, relationship, reasons, and resolve. Under rules, I wrote the word knowledge. When they're young, they need to learn knowledge or content. And then put plus love. That's for relationships. They need to hear the knowledge about what's true about God, plus love, and then plus wisdom. The reasons. I mean, the biblical reasons, the logical reasons, the good reasons, and then put an equal sign, and then write convictions. Obedience is a developmental process, And so you must, when they're young, teach them the content knowledge. You do it plus, over time, a loving relationship. Then you teach them the wisdom of the why behind it. And so the goal is, before they leave your home, they choose to make great decisions because they've transferred the trust and obedience from you onto Jesus Christ. And that's where the two principles I'm talking about in your notes come up. It's the principle of readiness and the principle of responsibility. If I wanted to summarize that whole chart, what I would say is the principle of readiness is only teach children what they're mentally and emotionally capable of learning. I mean, when I see a mom or a dad with a 3 or 4-year-old down here on one knee saying, you don't understand. You are already justified by faith. You've been sanctified. Don't you understand Ephesians 1 through 6? Why did you do that, son? And they go on and on and on, and the kids are going, I just wanted to play on Bobby's tricycle and you wouldn't let me, you know? All he needs to know is, no, we don't do that right now. You know, a 10-minute lecture is taking you backwards instead of forwards. And on the other end of it, when you've got an 18-year-old and they should be learning to make their own decisions, and you say, because that's the way I said, forget it. And they go to your room and they slam the door, and you go to your room and you slam the door. We got a problem here. And so you need to teach your kids what they're able to understand, and you're doing it, understanding. It's much like a kite. When they're real small, you don't let out a whole lot of string, and you have to do a lot of the movement to get it up in the air. But as they start to fly, you let out the rope, 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 and then there's times where what? They start to take a dip. You don't let them crash. But the older and older they get, you keep letting out more and more rope. Because what we all know about flying a kite, there's different seasons, aren't there? Some days are more windy. Some days are hotter. There's different kind of kites, too. There's box kites and these kind of kites, and some have short tails and have long tails. So it's an individual. There's not a cookie-cutter way to do it. But you are going to discipline your children and teach your children according to the principle of readiness, giving them only what they can handle. And then secondly, you're going to operate under the principle of responsibility, which says never habitually do for your children what they can do for themselves. That's a hard one, especially for moms. See, the goal is you want them to be responsible. The goal isn't that they have to look to you for doing everything. The goal is they can do it themselves. And this needs to start early and often. I love Teacher of the Year, Gene Bedley. He's the winner of the PTA Hearst National Outstanding Teacher of the Year in 1985. And he wrote an article and actually has a book similar. But he has a little box in the article that says, responsibility means I can do things on my own. And I love this. He says, when I turn it on, this is what you want to teach your kids. I turn it off. When I unlock something, I lock it up. When I drop something, I pick it up. When I break something, I repair it. When I open something, I close it. When I make a mess, I clean it up. When I make a promise, I keep my promise. When I find something, I return it. When I borrow something, I give it back. When I take it out, I put it back. When I'm assigned to a task, I complete it on time. When I earn money, I spend it or invest it wisely. See, your job as a parent is not to make your kid's life work out all the time. It's to transfer the responsibility into their court. Now, let me ask you. I'm going to mess around with you a little bit. Are you ready? You raised your hands. A lot of you have kids under 10. Who makes their bed? You or them? Do all your kids have chores that are very clearly laid out so they all have responsibility in the house? When your kids now, when they hit junior high, are you still trying to wake them up every morning and you got to get up and you got to get up in school, and is that a big deal? When my kids hit junior high, they all got an alarm clock. You telling me a 12 or 13-year-old can't set an alarm, push a button, and get up? And guess what? Let the consequences. They missed the bus a couple times. Now, I understand that there's some situations where you can't take them to school, but do you understand the difference between you feeling all this weight, that I've got to get this done and help my child do that? When they get to be 12, 13, 14, they ought to be able to do the laundry. Early on, they ought to be able to cook some of the meals. All my kids, I watch my wife, they would learn. And all of them really do well. I've got one son who has a baby right now, and he's an incredible dad. But part of the reason is he's changed diapers before. When he was 13, he changed his sister's diapers. You know, those of you that fix lunch and, you know, you have these amazing pressurized schedules, anybody of you have 11, 12, 13-year-olds? You know, it amazes me that we got guys working 60 and 80-hour weeks and mothers juggling 17 jobs, and we got kids sitting in front of video games watching TV saying, "Hey, Mom, is it ready yet?" What's wrong with this picture? Give the responsibility to the kids. Let out more and more and more string while they live in your home, and what you'll find is it's the greatest, most powerful way. This guy's not a believer who wrote this article. He's saying it's the most powerful way to build self-esteem in a child's life. Kids want to do things. And what happens is, especially, I'm not picking on you, but moms want to nurture so much. Anytime you do something for your child on a regular basis that they can do for themselves, you cripple them. You're not preparing them. You cripple them. Because right now we got a whole generation that are 27 living in the back bedroom saying, "Hey, where's breakfast?" And they're going to be there a long time unless you teach them some responsibility. The final passage I've put on here is just an interesting reminder. It's Ephesians 6:4 from the Good News Bible. It says, "Parents, do not treat your children in such a way as to make them angry. Instead, raise them with Christian discipline and instruction." And the word for discipline here is translated in other places in the New Testament as to discipline, to train, to chastise. It's a very strong word, and it always has to do with actions done to the child. The word instruction is translated other places: instruct, warn, counsel, admonish, encourage, urge, implore. It's always what is said to the child. I just want to make this note. The biblical text in the word order is interestingly supported by our best research. That when kids are small, you don't talk a lot. You discipline by actions because they don't understand a lot. And then they learn, and you communicate as time goes on. And then as they get older, it reverses, and you verbalize expectations and some railroad tracks, and then you let consequences or actions keep them on the railroad tracks. Does that make sense? Your kids' two primary needs are significance and security. The number one thing you want your child to learn is not how to be a great musician, not how to be a great athlete, or not how to make life go his or her way. We hope some of those things will happen. But the number one thing they need to learn is obedience, right? Now we need to remember obedience is a developmental process. I want you to pause and look down on that chart and ask yourself, as you think through your kids, how are you teaching your kids presently? Are you cooperating with the principle of readiness? And are you cooperating with the principle of responsibility?